drone strike to a dire pandemic to historic diplomatic wins and losses, the Middle East has been dramatically shifted into a new direction. So as we wrap up 2020, let's reflect on just a few of the many major storylines that have shaped the region. We begin way back on January 3rd, when a U.S. drone strike killed Iranian Quds Force Major General Qasem Soleimani and Popular Mobilization Forces Commander Abu Mahdi al-Mohandes. The pair wielded enormous influence in the region and were accused of U.S. President Donald Trump's administration of planning an imminent attack against American diplomats and service members, although no evidence was released. Analysts now fear of an Iranian strike on the one-year anniversary of their death. Moving on to February 19th, where Iran reported its first cases of the coronavirus. The country would go on to be the hardest hit in the region, with 1.2 million confirmed cases of the virus and over 55,000 deaths. Iran began human trials of its own vaccine this week, and they're also exploring foreign vaccine options. Moving next to April 20th, when Israel agreed on a unity government. The power-sharing agreement means that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Blue and White Party leader Benny Gantz will take turns being Prime Minister. That plan was halted in late December when Israel's government collapsed and pushed the country into a fourth election in less than 2 years. On next to May 6th, where Iraq's parliament confirmed Mustafa al-Kadhimi as the country's next prime minister. Former journalist and Iraqi National Intelligence Director had a big task ahead of him. The demands of large protests that broke out in the country in 2019 over government corruption, lack of employment, and dire public services were still largely unfulfilled. And the premier has had to walk a tightrope between Washington, Tehran, and armed militias that hold enormous influence. On next to July 22nd, where Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed announced that the Nile River Megadam project had reached its first major filling target. The $4.6 billion project is also known as the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and will be Africa's largest. It's slated to be completed in 2023. But the project is not without controversy. Ethiopia's downstream neighbors, Egypt and Sudan, fear that the dam will limit their access to the Nile's fresh water. Moving on to August 4th, where over 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate exploded in Lebanon's capital of Beirut. The blast killed over 200 people, injured over 6,500, and caused billions of dollars of damage in a country that was already struggling with a wrecked economy. The blast has now left an estimated 300,000 people homeless. And this month, an investigation into the blast has been scarred by powerful political forces that are blocking efforts to hold leaders accountable. Only 6 days after the blast on August 10th, a Turkish research vessel floated into the eastern Mediterranean Sea in waters that are also claimed by Greece. The move quickly escalated tensions on the high seas and resulted in a trading of live-fire naval exercises. This month, the European Union Council agreed to impose sanctions on Turkey for its gas drilling in the waters. And 3 days later, on August 13th, US President Donald Trump announced that Israel and the UAE were to normalize relations. Israel would eventually sign deals with the UAE and Bahrain. The deals were the first between Israel and an Arab state since a peace treaty with Egypt in 1979 and another with Jordan in 1994. And in just the past few months, Israel would go on to announce 2 more normalization deals, one with Sudan and a lighter version of the deal with Morocco. Moving on to October 23rd, where Libya's warring parties agreed to a permanent ceasefire in Geneva. Since 2015, the country has been divided between 2 administrations, a UN-backed government of national accord and a rival administration led by military commander Khalifa Haftar. But following months of negotiations since October's ceasefire agreement, the UN has urged both sides to speed up the peace process because they fear it could crumble at any moment. Finally, on November 3rd, the US presidential election voted in former Vice President Joe Biden to replace Donald Trump as the country's next president. But the Middle East is a much different place than the one Biden left in 2016 when he served in the Obama administration. Biden has previously called for Israel to work towards a genuine 2-state solution, and he has recently raised the possibility of re-entering into the Iran nuclear deal and lifting some sanctions against the regime. And that's your quick recap of some major storylines this year that have dramatically shifted the Middle East onto a new course for the future. As always, for more reading on the region, make sure to visit our website at www.al-monitor.com. Until next year, stay safe everyone. I'm Joe Snow.